It's time for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, the show that helps you be prepared to care for your family regardless of the circumstances that may come your way. Now, here's your host for today, Mark Lamb.
Well, as Janet said, we are in the studio with Glenn Boblitz. Glenn, I'm always intrigued, and I'm always waited with bated breath on what we're going to talk about.
Bated breath or in trepidation.
Well, sometimes
Let's
a little.
Spring it on you.
Little of both. Where are we going today?
Underground.
Underground?
Root cellars.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good.
I had several people talking about that. Everybody's thinking about storing their garden harvest, and one good way to do that without refrigeration is the old root cellars. I mean, they've been around for a couple thousand years, actually.
Right.
But you hear the grandparents talk about going to the root cellar and pulling out turnips and potatoes and all that kind of stuff. And the reason they called it a root cellar is because it was for the root crops.
Okay.
Turnips, carrots, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But you can also put lots of other stuff in there that'll store if you do them properly.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going with this.
Okay.
We're going to talk about just kind of construction of it, what they need, the characteristics of it. So we'll just dive right into it.
Okay.
And there's four primary characteristics of the root cellar. One, it's high humidity. If you've ever stored potatoes underneath your counter or in a little potato box or whatever, in about 2 weeks, they start to wrinkle. And about 3 weeks, they're really wrinkled, and that's because your house is usually very dry. Mm-hmm. And the potato is moist, so it starts losing. They all breathe out that moisture just through their skin. That's what they do. And they're just not a good texture to them anymore. Mm-hmm. So if the humidity is very high, and I'm saying up to like 94, 95% in these root cellars.
Yeah.
Now, how'd they achieve that?
Yeah.
They had a dirt floor.
Yes.
Or a gravel floor.
Okay, yeah.
And it was just ground moisture that came up. The walls, they may have been concrete, they may have been a cinder block wall, or they may have been log.
Right.
Depending on how far back you go.
Yeah.
So that's how they produced this high humidity that kept everything fresh. Because, just like an apple on your counter, in about 2 weeks, it's got that wrinkly look and it gets mealy, and that's because it's lost all that moisture. It's not as appealing. Sure, if you were hungry, you'd eat it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Been there, done that. So that's one of the characteristics. You want high humidity so your produce stays fresh looking and stays fresh where it doesn't start to lose all that moisture.
Okay.
Second is ventilation. Now, people say, well, how do you get something that's ventilated if it's, buried in the ground? Well, most of the time these things were cut into a hillside.
Okay.
For several reasons. One was positive drainage. Mm-hmm. If you cut straight into a hillside, obviously the front of your root cellar is going to have a door, and it's going to be above ground, or at least it should be.
Okay.
Even if there's one or two steps down. But they would bury this thing into the ground and have vents in it that they could open and close. Okay. Now, everybody thinks you just put your vegetables in there and go in once a month and pull out 5-10 pound of potatoes. No. You need to keep an eye on a root cellar.
Okay.
It's kind of like chickens. You got to count them every day.
Okay.
You should go and visit that thing at least 3 to 4 times a week.
All right.
A, just to make sure no mice are getting in. B, that your humidity and your temperature is staying stable.
Okay.
And check for things that are rotting.
All right.
You have to keep up with that. One bad apple will spoil the whole barrel.
Wait a minute.
Right.
That's like the old Osmond song.
So you go in there and you everything has that little smell to it. Mm-hmm. Now, if a potato rots in there, you're going to know it right away.
Right.
If a cabbage rots, you'll know it right
really?
away.
Okay.
But the apple, it may have to wipe out a few neighboring apples before you'd ever notice it.
Okay.
So going in there and checking it, making sure everything's good is real important. So The ventilation part, when you want cool air coming into that thing and fresh air with it so it doesn't mold and that kind of thing. So you have a cool air at the bottom because that's where the air is going to be the densest and it'll pull it in. But you need a chimney effect. And I don't mean a standard metal tube chimney, just a vent at the top. Hot air rises, so you want to be able to get rid of that hot air.
Sure.
And I'm not talking about, a blower type of circulation, just steady movement of air.
Okay.
As the evening comes in, the air gets cooler, sun goes down, so that air movement will occur naturally. If the outside air is cooler than the inside of your root cellar, the heat will cause it to rise. The cool air will push in the bottom, and that's how that works.
Okay.
So you do have to have those vents. Well, what if it drops down to, 13 degrees for a week? What do you do then? Well, you close your vents, to maintain that. And that's why it's real important to have a thermometer in there and a hydrometer or something that'll measure the humidity. So you go in there and you'll start to learn how your root cellar is reacting.
Okay.
Now I'm talking about outside, dug in, purposeful built root cellars. That you see some of these pictures online where a guy just crawls in a little 2x2 hole that he's dug back in the bank, some backwoods homesteader.
Right.
Well, hey, they work too. And there's lots of different kinds and ways to do it. But so ventilation is key. You don't want that moist air just sitting because that's asking for trouble. You want fresh air. The second is the cool temperatures, obviously. Duh. Well, the temperature should be 34 to 50 degrees. You don't want much over 50 degrees. Now, natural ground temperature, 3 foot down is about 55 degrees.
Really? Okay.
So that kind of helps with the refrigeration part. But I just said moisture. As moisture moves out of your root cellar and cool air comes in, there's a cooling effect because the moisture is going to carry heat with it. Just that's how heat pumps work, all that kind of stuff. So as it's moving through, it's carrying the heat out. So that will actually drop your temperature, even though the ground temperature is 55. That air movement carrying a high moisture load will carry the heat with it. So it can actually drop it down 10 to 15 degrees, just through the natural movement of air. So in the wintertime and in the late fall or even late fall, the temperature is going to drop down at night. So that temperature, cool night temperatures of 35, 40 degrees are going to infiltrate that root cellar at night and be carried out and into the space. So if it's thermally insulated, your little root cellar, and it should be, it'll maintain that. And the temperatures don't go up real high during the late fall and winter time. So it's not going to gain much more heat. The sun's much lower during the winter, so you're not going to get that infrared sunshine that you get during the summer. It doesn't work like that. So that's a possibility of having those kind of temperatures in that. The old spring houses used the same principle, that moving water through there, high humidity and ventilation is how things kept cool. And because it's actually carrying that warm, moist air out, the spring house kept everything cool. Plus, things were in the water.
Right.
Whether you had masonry crocks or clay crocks with your food inside of them sitting in the water. Same principle, though. But the outside temperature could be 50, 60, 70 degrees, but the inside maintains itself.
Okay.
The earth is kind of an insulator, of course, and it's going to pull heat out of there just naturally. you've ever laid on a cold ground, it'll pull the heat right out of you. Same principle.
Yeah.
If you go down in the earth a little deeper, the temperature starts dropping a few degrees. It may go down as 49, 50 degrees, but you're going to have to be down 8, 10 feet. Now, for somebody to dig something down 8, 10 feet is pretty daunting.
Mm-hmm.
Can be done. Picking a wheelbarrow and a couple shovels and volunteer kids, can be done. But, it'd be good to have a backhoe.
Yeah.
That's if you're going to do it that way. Now, let's say you don't have the space or the sloping land to get that kind of earth moved into a hillside. Mm-hmm. You can dig down 4 feet. The dirt that came out,
you can
mound it up on top.
It.
Yeah, you're pushed, and that works also.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's how they did a lot of them. Sometimes you had to build a retaining wall to the front, whatever you got to do to get that thing surrounded by earth and insulated. Now, if you have a roof system on it, something other than a concrete roof or whatever, but you would have a floor and a roof system. You're going to have to insulate that.
Right.
You want those temperatures to be extremely stable. And that's the whole idea here.
So quick question, because normally when we would build a basement with block, for example, we would tar the outside.
Right.
To keep that moisture from coming through. Same thing applies with this?
Actually, you want that moisture.
Okay, that's where I was going.
So...
And because it's not a standard basement that you're worried about other things getting ruined.
Correct.
You actually want that.
And that brings up the fourth characteristics, positive drainage.
Okay.
They dug into this hillside, which means your door is on the low side of the hill. Mm-hmm. So any water that would actually stand from a heavy rain or whatever should be able to flow either around your mounded up structure or have a drain in the floor. Now, if the ground's sloping away, that's not an issue. Dig a small trench out 3 or 4 feet, put a pipe in it, put a screen over the pipe because mice will find it.
Right.
And have that in your floor, and that'll keep your floor from being flooded. Now, that's kind of common sense, but, that's why you can't dig a pit straight into the ground down 8 feet and think that it's not going to hold water, especially in Virginia clay soils.
Right.
It will actually float your building out, believe that or not.
Okay.
Same reason that when they put in a gas tank for a gas station.
Yeah.
As soon as they get the gas tank in and get the gravel filled halfway up, they put fuel in it.
Okay.
And that's for weight. Because otherwise, it'd be a boat.
Right.
You don't want a boat. You need that drainage at the bottom.
I understand.
You need the drainage on the sides. It's okay to have moist soils around your root cellar, but you don't want water infiltrating and not be able to get rid of it.
Right.
I can't remember anybody's old root cellar from the 60s that I ever went in that didn't have a crack in a concrete wall.
Yeah.
Now, water's coming in, but it really didn't matter because there was always a drain in the floor.
Right.
I mean, they figured that part out. So that's a good thing. Moisture is a good thing in the case of a root cellar, not in a basement, but we'll go there too. So the 4 things: high humidity, good ventilation that you can control, either open and close it manually. They have little vents that open and close automatically with a little spring called a foundation vent. Those are easy to find at any hardware store. Cool temperatures. You're trying to get cool, stable temperatures that you must monitor. Positive drainage. All right, those are the 4. So what types of root cellars are we talking about? We just talked about a purposely built hillside structure or mounded up structure that may cost you a little money to do, unless you're real handy or can do concrete work or even log work. Regardless of that, there's so many things online that you can look up to find out all these primitive types and modern types of root cellars that you could build. If you got a little extra money, you know, and you go a block or concrete, and it'd be a real longevity of that will be increased, of course. You can also store stuff in a basement. Now, you're going to have to do something a little different in your basement.
Okay.
You're probably going to have to add moisture, a humidifier, something automatic. If that doesn't work, you hang wet towels or wet burlap or wet cloth.
That'll keep that moisture in there.
And again, you're going to have to go in there and monitor that. You look at your hydrometer and you go, wow, the humidity is down to 60%. I may need to hang a wet towel.
Right.
And it'll go into the air, because most people, especially a heat pump, that's dry heat, which will suck the moisture right out of it. So let's say you want to do it in your basement, and this is, I'm talking about a modern concrete floor, maybe even a finished basement. You need to have the ability to insulate that. You may have to build 2 walls. Try to build it in the corner of the house that has the most dirt against that wall, because that'll be the coolest, the most stable. Obviously, you're not going to run air conditioning into it to cool it down. That's not going to work. Right. But you need to close it off, have good insulated doors, and at a minimum, 6-inch thick walls.
Okay.
Insulated 6-inch thick walls. And if you're going to have that high humidity, you still need that ventilation. So you're going to have to vent that in and out. Not into your basement, because you don't want all that moisture in, but in and out of your walls. Now, that could be as small as a 4-inch vent. That'll give you enough positive airflow. Well, outside.
And there isn't a mechanical aspect of this. Would it be better to have a low-powered fan?
If you want to get really into it and you're handy, you could do a small solar fan. They have these little tiny solar fans that run computers to cool the computer off. Okay. Now, they work great, and they're only like 8-10 watts. There's not much to them. And it's a little solar battery and all that. I mean, if you want to go whole hog and you think, I can do this, absolutely. The more positive circulation you can have, the better.
All right.
So you're probably not going to need the drainage part if it's in your basement, because your basement should be dry to start with. Right. So if that's not the case, you may have to check your basement. Right. But a lot of older homes, they may not have that concrete floor, or it may be just a crawl space. Right. A crawl space will work. Again, it has to be insulated, where you're not getting the warm temperatures from the outside heating that space up. You're going to have to just look at what you have as far as a basement or a crawl space to make that place for it. Now, some people are going to put their canned goods in there. Now, that's okay, but you probably want to do something to protect any of the metal surfaces in there. Things rust, that's fact. So if you stick metal in an area that has high humidity, high moisture content, you will get rust pits, especially on like the rings on your canning jars. Take the canning ring off. It doesn't need to be on there. But you can also take beeswax with a little mineral oil in it and wipe it down. And what you're doing, you're putting a wax coating on it. You can rub it with just plain mineral oil. Just anything to protect it from that moisture getting to your metal lid. And anything else you would put. But canned foods from the store, regular cans, you're going to have to do something with them. Now, you can peel the label and wax the whole can, wipe it down, mineral oil, whatever you have to do to keep that thing from rusting through. You do not want your food to have a pinhole from rust, because you're going to get botulism. That's how it starts. And you pop the can open and you go, well, that doesn't smell exactly right, but boy, I'm hungry, and that cost a lot, so I'm going to eat it anyway. That'd be a mistake.
Right.
use your nose.
Yeah,
for
your
this
sickness
kind of
bill is
stuff.
going to
and
be far greater.
You'll regret that one.
Yeah.
All right. So you understand the basement principle of all that. So we got a hillside structure or the basement, an understorage, wherever you have even a garage will work if it's insulated well enough. Some houses have their garage in underneath their house, and you might be able to steal some space from your husband or your wife's area, but you better ask first. So that's that one. Well, I don't have all those things, so what else can you do? A barrel. You can actually dig a barrel into the ground, preferably into a hillside, because it gives you that positive drainage.
Right.
Because the barrel will float out too. If you just drilled a hole in the Virginia clay soils and the barrel had no holes in it, it's going to float like a boat. You're going to go, is this my imagination? Has this thing come up 3 inches this year?
Right.
Well, we had that heavy rain and it floated it out. There you are.
Yeah.
I've seen people take old freezers and bury them in the ground.
Now that's interesting.
Now that's an insulated box.
I was going to say, it's already insulated.
That would be something you can do, but you have to have that humidity and ventilation. Remember that. So you would have to have some type of hole through those things to allow that to happen. Now, how do you get the humidity from the ground, the ground moisture in there, and ventilation? Well, you're going to have a vent pipe in and a vent pipe out. Both are going to have to have positive drainage from the lowest level of that freezer. Now, if it's on perfectly flat ground, that's going to be really hard to do because water has to flow downhill.
Right.
So you would have to trench underneath that freezer to a hillside or a sloping ground until it came out to that level. It has to be lower than the bottom of that freezer.
Because gravity always does its job, doesn't it?
Gravity never stopped working. All right, so you have a storage box, or you have, and when I say a box, you could literally build one of these out of wood.
Okay.
You can still do that. Now, it's not going to last you 30 years, but it's only, let's say, a 4x4.
Right.
A 4x4 hold a lot of food.
Well, would we maybe want to use like oak, red oak or something, or even white oak if you can get your hands on it?
The tougher the wood, the better.
Yeah, because it takes less time to deteriorate and break down.
Right. And you don't want water infiltrating that, so having a piece of filter cloth on the outside, like landscape fabric, that'll keep that from coming in, but that drainage has to be there. So just an idea. And some people will do a pit. I know you've seen silage, corn silage at a farmer. He has a pit, usually concrete walls on the side that lean out, but it's below ground, and it has positive drainage. It doesn't have a door on it, obviously, or a roof over it, but that is the same principle. He's storing that food in that pit for them cows.
Okay.
Right? So same thing. A pit could be a 4x4 pit, or it can be a long trench.
Right.
Now, you're going to have to keep water from infiltrating from the top. Now, some of the old people used to take wooden planks and make a semi-door or a semi-roof because it was sloped downhill.
Right.
They would put some type of insulating material, such as hay or something, between you and the food, so the heat doesn't get there. And it wasn't really a door. It was more like a sliding board, if you can think of it that way. But it would shed the water off, really heavy rainwater. So having that pit, now you dig that pit or trench that's flowing downhill. You line it not with plastic, because the plastic will hold water. You don't want holding water. So a filter cloth or landscape fabric, something will allow water to pass through.
Right, it'll still go in back into the ground.
Then line it with straw.
Okay.
Or hay, either one. And that'll keep a barrier between the water and your produce. And you would put in starting at the top, a layer of produce, and then a layer of straw, layer of produce, layer. That would allow air to still move through there.
Right.
Because it's on a sloped hillside, heat's going to rise and it's going to go out the top.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have that straw in there, it will allow that air to still move. It doesn't have to be a vent tube as long as the air can move. And again, these are all online, and they'll show it to you. If you just type this stuff in for doing root cellars
mm-hmm.
or a barrel, trash can, it doesn't matter what it is, but you have to have holes in all those things to allow moisture in and heat out.
Okay.
Then you have mounding. Now, a potato mound, have you ever seen one done? They haven't done them for years. I don't know anybody that's done one in a long time, but the ground may be too hard, maybe too rocky. I mean, the people lived up in the mountains of West Virginia, it was hard to dig anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they would do it on top of the ground. And they did that by putting down a pallet or several pallets.
Mm-hmm.
So water didn't stand. That's an obvious one. Then they would put a layer of potatoes, layer of straw, and they would just mound it up until they had this pile of hay and straw and potatoes and all that stuff. Then they would pile dirt up on it. Sometimes they would stack boards up on it like a teepee style. Anything to shed
right.
a whole lot of water off of
Away,
it.
yeah.
Right. So, and in the wintertime, they'd pull a board back or two, dig in there, find a potato, pull it out, cover it back up. And that worked.
Wow.
And you need about 6 to 8 inches of straw at least. A, so it don't frost and freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And B, it will still allow that air to move.
Mm-hmm.
So doing all that, it will work. And it doesn't matter if you get a wet spot or two in there. It'll eventually drain itself away.
Yeah.
It's not going to be standing water, floating water in there. So that worked for years. Sweet potatoes would do good. Pumpkins would do good.
Mm-hmm.
So you really don't need to have all this stuff. Now, do they work as good as a traditional root cellar? No. There's too many variables that could happen. You know,
play.
If it drops down 13 below and you've only got 6 inches of straw, that may be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's getting that cold out, you need to probably go throw something over top the whole thing, a big tarp, whatever.
Yeah, a blanket of some sort.
And that'll hold in just enough heat that it will not freeze. So that those are your options. Now, intelligent people will figure this stuff out.
Okay. Glenn, let's take a break because I know we have intelligent people that are listening, and intelligence isn't IQ necessarily. Intelligence is understanding the signs of the times, and just being able to preserve the food that you do have, and you don't want to do all that work growing things and then you're losing it because you're not prepared to take it into the next season possibly. We're with Glenn Ballblitz here on Sustainable Living Made Easy. We're going to take a break here and wrap things up when we get back.
Get ready for a new soundtrack for your life. Doc Rock, Smith Mountain Lake. It's music that'll take away your troubles for a while.
That's what I'm talking about!
Wake up with Janet and Mark on the Morning Jam. They'll keep you informed and encouraged, and we all need more of that.
You say jam?
You're invited to be a part of the Doc Rock family, your feel-good station. Doc Rock, Smith Mountain Lake.
We're back with more Sustainable Living with Glenn Ballblitz. Be sure to look for Sustainable Living on Facebook for even more information and follow-up conversations with other members. Now, here's your host, Mark Lamb.
Back in the studio here with Glenn Ballblitz. We've covered a lot of ground for root cellars or alternatives to root cellars. If you only have a certain piece of property and there's any kind of a bank, or you don't even need a bank, we've learned. We dig a 4-foot hole and then we pack that 4 foot of dirt, and we've just made ourselves an embankment of sorts, and then the preparation of preparing that along with either using concrete or wood, or we use barrels. There's several ways that you've shown us today how we could have a root cellar, at least the effective one, if we don't have a cellar with a concrete, not a concrete floor, but rather a dirt floor. I like the fact of putting gravel down, all right?
Yes.
Because it still has the same effect, and you're not kind of coming out with, mud all over you necessarily.
True that.
So, not that I don't mind getting muddy, but.
All right. We got a few tips about you got a place to store your stuff. Let's say you do have this really nice root cellar that you built. We used to pack some of our vegetables in sawdust or sand. Now,
Okay.
Why would you do that? The sand and sawdust both hold moisture, especially for like turnips and things like that,
All
carrots. Right. So you don't lose the moisture. They don't become leathery or rubbery. A carrot that's lost a lot of moisture is rubbery and not really appealing. But
Sure.
I swear you put them in the sawdust with them, it has that moisture available to go in and out. It looks like you just pulled them, and people just go, wow, I didn't know that this was 4 months ago in the middle of January and February. And you're pulling these carrots or turnips out. You're going, man, they look perfect. Potatoes and things like that are grown in the dirt, do not wash this stuff. You knock the dirt off, allow that little bit of dirt that's on it to dry, and that actually helps the potato. If you wash it all off, you're more than likely going to remove or cause an abrasion into the skin of a potato, especially red potatoes, and that's going to rot.
Okay.
And you're going to go, why did it all rot? That must have been a terrible root cellar. No, you beat that skin up so bad, washing it, that now you've allowed bacteria to get in.
Right.
The skin is there for a reason. So,
Yeah.
Second is use only the best. Take the best produce you have, the most perfect fruits you have. They are going to store the best. If you've got one that's got a bug bite on the side or a little split, or a lot of tomatoes will start, especially in the fall of the year, they'll start to split.
Yeah.
That's going to let bacteria in, and your tomatoes just not going to last very long.
Right.
Apples, need to say something about apples. Try not to put apples in with anything. They let off a gas, xylene gas, and that ethylene gas. That gas will cause everything else to ripen even faster and rot even faster.
That's just crazy.
So we never stored the apples
Okay.
with anything. They had their own place.
Right.
Storing of apples, you should really wrap them with paper. Wax paper's best.
Okay.
But wax paper's kind of expensive nowadays, so just wrap them in a newspaper or butcher paper, and they will last a lot longer. It keeps the moisture in and keeps that ethylene from spreading to something else, spreading to the other fruits. Pears are the same way.
Okay.
You wrap a pear. If you ever notice when you get a case of pears at the store, you see them sitting there. They're always wrapped, and that's the reason.
How about that?
It just
Okay.
makes them store longer and better.
Okay. All right.
Try to wait to put a bunch of stuff in your root cellar towards the end of the year. You don't want to start putting tomatoes in June, because they're only going to last, about 5 to 6 months. It's really hard for you to be able to store anything past there because you don't have the facility that a large manufacturing producer has. They flood them with argon gas.
Right.
And, they've got controlled refrigerators, all that kind of stuff. You don't have that kind of facility. And if you do, good for you. So don't plan on these being a year's worth. You're going to get about 6 months at the most. And potatoes are notorious from detecting that change in the spring, and they start putting out sprouts.
Right.
That's a little harder to control. Go online. There's a lot of theories on it, but I'll let you all read about that when you get
There you go.
time. That's about all we've got. I've got a couple more things, but we'll do more later.
We'll save that for later. Well,
Yep.
thank you, Glenn. If people have questions about any of these things, the cellar or why apples give off those gases or whatever, or how industry pumps certain gases in, anyway, they can reach out to you a couple of ways. I'm going to give the text number they could reach out, and then I'll get you to give the Facebook location, 434-248-0704. That's 434-248-0704. And just let us know, hey, we've got a question for Glenn at Sustainable Living Made Easy. Glenn, what's the Facebook connection?
You can go on Facebook and find us at Sustainable Living Made Easy and just drop me a line, shoot me a question, put a comment. Tell me what you need, what you're looking for, what problems you're having at your homestead, and we'll try to get all that straightened out.
All right, sir. Well, thank you as usual.
Thank you.
Join us again next week for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, helping you be prepared and not scared. This podcast drops every Friday anywhere you get your podcast.